to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. And finally, a Philadelphia Union win Wednesday night as the Union defeat Atlanta United by a score of 3-2. And man, a lot to talk about in this game in regards to controversial decisions that actually went the Union's way. And we're getting into all that here in a bit. Hear from Gonzalo Pineda, the Atlanta United manager, his thoughts on Alex Chilowitz's performance as head referee in this match. Obviously, we'll go ahead and talk about the front three all scoring in this match. We'll talk about Nate Harriel's performance filling in at left back, 3 stars, and we'll find whatever else I want to talk about in this match. We'll find a way to put it in, but we have sound bites from Jakob Glesnes, Daniel Gazdag as well, so should be a pretty jam-packed episode. Again, as I always say, if this is your first time listening to the podcast, listening to a midweek review episode, no news segment for these, no blend of the week for this. I'm going to save all that for the weekend game. The Union are home once again this Saturday, final regular season home game of the season against Nashville. And a huge game for both clubs. And you could argue, too, maybe it's a little bit more important for Nashville as they lose against Orlando City last night by a score of 1-0. Daniel Lovitz is going to miss this game against the Union as he got a red card in the second half of stoppage time. So Nashville going to be missing a player, but we're not going to be talking about Nashville this episode, talking about Atlanta United, Philadelphia Union, and last night's win sees the Union move up to third place, won 54 points, 32 games played. The top 9, because yes, there are 9 playoff spots up for grabs this season. If you guys were living under a rock, Cincinnati, we already know, clinched 65 points, Supporters Shield winner. Second place, Orlando City. And that's a huge win for them, too. On the road, I mean, time and time again, they continue to prove that they're the best MLS road team. Sitting in second, 57 points. Philadelphia Union, 54 points. Columbus, 53 points. New England, 5th, won 52 points, but they have a game in hand. 6th, Atlanta United with 49 points. Nashville, 45 points with a game in hand. Chicago in 8th with 40. Montreal with 38. In that final playoff spot. New York City is at 38. They're right there, fighting for one of the last 2 playoff spots. DC United on 37 points. They have 1 game remaining, though, so it's going to be really hard for United to get into the playoffs. New York Red Bulls with 37. Charlotte with 36. Into Miami with 33 with 3 games to play. And Toronto, we all know, are already eliminated. Miami, they host Cincinnati this weekend. Tough match for Inter Miami, and I don't think this is good for Inter Miami, which is good for all of us, right? We can say that once Inter Miami officially gets knocked out of playoff contention, then we can all say, all right, MLS isn't rigged. So looking forward to when Inter Miami get knocked out officially for a playoff spot. But yeah, a lot of games this weekend, obviously. Important games, like I mentioned, for Nashville. I mean, they need a win. If they want to move up in that ranking, I think right now they could potentially catch the Union or Columbus if they win their remaining games, but I don't think that's happening. 5th or 6th, I mean, obviously Nashville are going to want a higher seed. They're not going to want to go on the road in the playoffs. If they win one of the games, they're only going to have 1 home match and for the best of 3 series and only 1 home match. It's not going to be good for Nashville. So Nashville is obviously going to be fighting for that top 4 spot, going to be pushing men for it. So that plays into how the Union like to play, hit you on the counterattack. But that Atlanta United game last night, Union keeps their unbeaten streak alive with 7 straight games now that the Union are unbeaten in. And it's like, okay, yes, 7 games unbeaten. We know 5 draws prior to this win against Atlanta. how excited does that make you that, well, the Union aren't losing, but they're also not winning? And then when you look at those 5 draws, 3 out of 5 of those, the Union dropped points from leading positions. So, yeah, it doesn't make you feel great. But the Union get back to winning ways last night. And at halftime, I'm walking around the stadium, talking with people in the press box, and people are like, man, the Union are back. And I said, not so fast. Not so fast at all. I don't believe the Union are back yet. Because it's the same thing that people were saying against Cincinnati. The Union go into the half up 2-0. Sons of Ben are chanting, overrated. And look what happens in the second half. Look what happens last night in the second half. Atlanta outscores the Union 2-0. And I saw a lot of similarities between the Cincinnati game and last night's Atlanta game. A lot of struggles in the second half for the Union. They struggled to create any real goal scoring opportunities in that second half. They absorbed a ton of pressure defensively, gave up a lot of shots. And maybe the biggest similarity between the Cincinnati and Atlanta game is the Union looked gassed in the second half. Look at the players that Atlanta brought on as that second half went on. Derek Etienne, Edwin Mosquera, who scored the second goal. Fortune. All attackers. They were going for this. And who did the Union bring on? Matt Real, Damian Lowe in the 83rd, 84th minute to, let's bunker down. Those subs should have been made a lot faster than what they were made. And I'm sure a lot of you guys echo that same statement I just made. I know for a fact because you guys always complain. Why didn't Jim Curtin take Bedoya out? Why didn't he take McGlynn out? Why did he wait so long to make this substitution? It's been the same old argument for the last couple years. So why would last night be any different, right? And you saw in both games, Cincinnati and Atlanta again. Don't want to confuse you guys. That's what we're talking about. The similarities. You saw the midfield getting overran. And you saw that on the goal that Mosquera scored. McGlynn's jogging back. You have Brooks Lennon and Mosquera now in a 2v1 situation against Harriel. Lennon overlaps Mosquera. And Nate gets beat easily by Lennon. Blake makes a huge save on Muamba, and the ball falls right back to him. Harriel gets caught ball watching, and Mosquera is wide open, and he's able to put the ball in the back of the net. And it's a goal that probably wouldn't have happened if you would have brought on fresh legs. That goal happened in the 66th minute. Union were forced to bring in Jose Martinez in the 12th minute. Quinn Sullivan came on in the 62nd. Like I said, Damian Lowe, 83rd minute. Matt Real, 84th minute. Atlanta subs. 66, 66, 73rd, 73rd, 85th. 4 minutes after Jim Curtin makes his second substitution of the game. That's when Atlanta United score. And they kept attacking down that left side of the field for the Union, going at Nate Harriel, who I thought, other than that and the handball call, when we can get into that here in a bit, I thought he played pretty well. And so it's really hard for me to fault Nate too much on that left-hand side of the field when that side was just getting attacked a ton by Atlanta. Jack McGlynn didn't track back. His legs were gone. And like I said, you used Martinez as a sub a lot earlier than you wanted to with that injury to Jesus Bueno. Jim Curtin said after the game that Bueno's ankle started to flare up and you start to worry about potential ligament damage in the foot. And the plan coming into the night was for Jose Martinez to only play 30 minutes. Plays over 80 minutes on the night. And he played fantastically. For a player that, again, only supposed to play 30 minutes, played way over that. This guy plays for the badge. Couldn't tell that Jose Martinez was injured. Was great. You have Leon Flock, who's just coming back from his groin injury. And so you don't have much depth in the midfield. So Jim didn't have many options for subs this game. But again, you still wish you would have seen subs a little bit earlier than when they were brought onto the field. And if I'm being totally honest, and I think you guys can be as well, this game would have been totally different if the referee would have gave that earlier penalty on Nate Harriel for the handball. From my angle, from the replays, it looked like it was a clear and obvious handball. Nate Harriel is extending his arm out, and Alex Chilowitz decides, yeah, he's not putting his hand in an unnatural position, so no penalty. What do you mean? He extended his hand out. That is a clear and obvious penalty. And as Junior fans, you're taking. It's a big decision that went against Atlanta. It's a huge moment in this game that would have changed everything. Because Atlanta, they get a penalty early on in this game. And now they can just bunker down. But instead, the Union are the ones who are able to stay alive, get a big save by Andre Blake, and we'll talk about that some more if you guys want. And then the Union get 3 goals in 9 minutes, and then that's the end of the half. This game would have been totally different if that handball was given, because we saw Thiago Almada get a penalty in this game, converts it in the second half, and you start to worry a little bit. All right, Atlanta's back in this match. And they really, really brought the pressure on the Union, like I mentioned. But the Union found a way to survive and advance on calls that went their way. And like I said, we have a soundbite from Gonzalo Pineda, the manager of Atlanta United. And this is what he had to say.
I want to talk to the pro referees here and ask them how we have to earn the respect of them to get the calls. Today should have been 3 PKs. It was called only 1. Against us, against Montreal, a handball for Abraham that hits the left hand in here in the chest, and after that a rebound comes to the arm. It's called a PK. Today, the first PK from the first half, before their 3 goals, should have been called a PK. So if Jim Cortin talked before this game about the handballs, and he talked about no one knows what is handballs anymore, and then they get the calls and they get the advantage because of that. Against New England this year, Bruce Arena talks the game before our game against them in their house. They talk about their handball that wasn't called, and then Brooks Lennon in the first half crosses from the primacy zones, is a handball and it's not called a PK. Do I need to talk before the games every time about the referees not giving us the calls? What else do we need to do rather than trying to play good football, dominating the game, trying to create a lot of chances? What else we need to do to earn the respect? Because to me, it feels like tonight we were punished. The score normal should have been 4-3 because 3 penalties should have been called. Based on the standard of the league and how they call our handballs, should have been 3 PKs tonight, and we should have won 4-3. But if I need to talk to the referees about that, I need to do it. And because the channels that they put for us doesn't work anymore, I'm gonna talk publicly about that. And if I need to say this every weekend before our games, I'm gonna do it, because we have to earn the respect. Today, Alex Chilowicz, I have a bad memory, so I don't have the right stats. But It feels like most of the times we get controversial calls from him against us. It might be a coincidence, but my record is that we lose more often with him than not. Last game I recall he refereed for us, it was against Red Bulls at home. And it was a horrible tackle on Brad Guzan that should have been a red card, and he didn't do it. It was a horrible tackle in the knee of the goalkeeper, and it wasn't a red card. So it feels like he's always controversial, and normally the calls of Alex are against us. What else we need to do to earn the respect? That's my response to your question, Doug.
And he's right. And I looked up the stats. Alex Chilowitz has refereed all time 9 games for Atlanta United. And in those games, Atlanta United have won 33% of those matches. That's good for 1.1 points per game. He's got a point. And maybe it is a coincidence, right? And it gets even worse when Atlanta United go on the road. 6 games, Alex Chilowitz is the referee. Atlanta only win 16.7% of those matches. 83.3% of those games end in losses for Atlanta on the road when Alex Chilowitz is the referee. He's got a point. Is it a coincidence? Or is there something bigger going on? Because as Union fans, you guys would have been pissed if the non-handball call went against you. It's a clear and obvious penalty. And I don't know what else to say. Then the Union got extremely lucky. And yes, Pineda says the game would have ended up 4-3 us because there was another penalty he was talking about that was missed in the second half. And he's saying, yeah, we would have won this game 4-3. And I would argue, I don't think that's the case. I don't think this game would have ended 4-3. Because if Atlanta United would have got that early goal in this game, now it's the Union chasing Atlanta. And that changes the whole game. If Atlanta go up early in this match, 1-0, now the Union really have to start pushing players forward. And Atlanta can just bunker down and now hit the Union on the counterattack. Doesn't happen, and the Union survive. And I think right after that, the 35th, 36th minute, something like that, Atlanta United had a really big chance with Muamba, where he kicks the ball straight at Andre Blake, and Andre makes a save, and then the Union, like I said, go on to score 3 goals in 9 minutes. And that's a huge turning point in this match. That is the turning point in this game, in my opinion, where the whole team sees Andre Blake save a shot point blank. It gives them the spark they needed, the motivation that they were lacking. They wake up and they respond well. They get 3 goals from their front 3. It's the first time that all 3 of them have scored in the same game this season. They did it 3 times last season. And funny enough, in one of those 3 games, it was also against Atlanta in a 4-1 victory for the Union. And even when the Union weren't scoring in the first half, you know, they were capitalizing on a lot of 3-on-3 situations. They got themselves in those situations constantly. The front 3 really linked out well. And it hasn't always been there this season. But in the first half, it worked out well. And this is what Jim Curtin had to say about his team's transitions in the first half.
I think, part of it's, styles. Atlanta, 4-2-3-1 is one of the better matchups for our diamond because the space is on the side where McGlynn was getting on the ball and Ollie were getting on the ball in the first half in particular with nobody really near them, and they could kind of dictate things. But you're right, on the transitions when we broke, The biggest thing was we held the first ball. That is everything. Where in previous games it was kind of 50-50. Sometimes we'd lose it, and when you lose a transition, then your counterattack gets countered, and that's really, really dangerous because that's a moment where you're open. So I thought that we really held the first ball well. The Julian goal that's my favorite goal of the night because that's us. An entry ball inside by McGlynn, good knockdown, a second guy running through. Danny, I actually was yelling at him to go down because I thought he got fouled from behind. But then he makes a good play driving into the box, and Julian gets a great finish. So that's us. That's my favorite goal of the night. And more of that, man. In transition, we're hard to play against.
Yeah, and they are. And I see why people were saying at halftime that, yep, the Union are back. This is what they were missing. Because it was beautiful transition moments. You're up 3-0. And like I said earlier, just tired legs. Weren't creating enough opportunities. Weren't getting shots on target in the second half. Fatigue set in. And again, it's a credit to Atlanta for making the subs when they made them. Those players came onto the field hungry, pushing the Union. And so unlucky not to have got that penalty call. This game probably should have ended in a draw because I do think Atlanta probably were the better team on the night. They capitalized on all their moments in the second half. Put the Union under a lot of pressure. But, I get it. You can flip it and say, well, yes, Atlanta was bringing all that pressure, and the Union didn't give up that third goal. You're right. But it's so hard for me to think what this game could have been, what this game should have been, if a penalty is given in the first half against Nate Harriel. And maybe Andre Blake saves it, and this point doesn't matter. But you never know. This is a good building block for the Union with the remaining 2 games of the regular season, with playoffs coming up. Find a way to build on what you did in the first half. A lot of good. And Jim Curtin talks about how, we didn't play a complete game. He talks about that a lot of times. And if you're showing game film, show them everything that went right in the first half. And find ways. Say, look, this is us. We proved that we can do this with the remaining 2 games left. We can do this in the playoffs. If we do this, we have a real shot at getting back to MLS Cup. Teams are going to fear us. Because when the Union's front 3 is clicking, there's not many better in the league than Danny, Julian, and Mikel. And it's funny enough, I asked Jim Curtin prior to the match, I forget when the midweek press conference was, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, something like that, I don't know. One of the days last week. I asked him, how do you get the front 3 clicking? Do you feel like they're close to potentially breaking out? And this is what Jim had to say.
Look, when you ask how much are we missing by in the case of Mikel's breakaway, literally inches. That's the difference in these games. It goes off the bar and up and out instead of off the bar and in. So it's a fine line. We have great strikers. We have great attackers between Danny, Julian, and Mikel. I think maybe in some ways a plus 46 goal differential that we had last year. They set the bar so astronomically high it can't be replicated, even in the league. It's an absurd number for any team. So now when a couple don't go in, it's never as bad as it seems, and it's never as good as it seems. So keeping the guys level-headed, trusting themselves, knowing that if they do things the right way, the little margins will start to go our way. Even the goal we score in transition against Columbus that were just offsides, that's still a really good action and a really good movement from the team with essentially a tap-in. So finding ways to get that as the games get harder and the defensives get tighter is our challenge for sure. But these guys are proven goal scorers, and I know they'll step up in the big moments.
Yeah, and it's just so funny Jim mentioned that during the week. And look at the performance we got on Saturday. Something clicked between those front 3. And maybe it was a good week of practice. Maybe it's staying after watching game film. You heard Jim Curtin mention earlier in the first clip I played of him saying, yeah, playing against a 4-2-3-1, that kind of plays to the Diamond's advantage. And maybe that's part of it. Do you guys believe that the front three is close to clicking? Because if you just take the first half, then yes, I agree with everybody that said the Union are back. But it's a little bit concerning. And I know that Atlanta is one of the highest scoring teams in MLS this season. It's hard to stop that offense. They've scored 63 goals this season. And so they were probably always going to score goals this match. But it is concerning that the Union gave up the penalty in the second half, should have given up a penalty in the first half, gave up a penalty against Columbus. Are they unfortunate? Is it mistakes that they're doing that's leading to the penalty? Maybe both. And they did just enough to close out the game against Atlanta. And maybe I'm being a little bit too negative, but the point I'm trying to make is I'm not buying into the hype that the Union are back. Prove it against Nashville, a team that's going to come at you. They are fighting for their playoff lives. Prove it against Nashville. And then you guys are probably right. I'm going to be saying the same thing if the Union beat Nashville this weekend. All right, go into Gillette Stadium and do it against the Revs. And then I'll believe the Revs are back. God, I hope that's not my saying the next 2 episodes. But I don't. I don't think the Atlanta game is enough for me to say the Union are back yet. But I did ask Daniel Gazdag, one of the goal scorers, do you believe that the front three is close to bringing out, scoring in multiple games together again?
Obviously, we try to score as much as we can every game. It's not easy. The opponent team also, study us. They know what we do on the field. They prepared to the games, so it's not easy. But once we get going, like it happened in the first half, we can score a lot of goals.
And Danny's right. Once the front three get going, they're going to score a lot of goals. And maybe we saw a lot earlier in the second half of the season last year that the front three and the whole team in general were clicking a lot earlier than maybe what they're doing now. But maybe it's not a bad thing. You break out against Atlanta. You break out against Nashville. You break out against New England. Then you hope that carries in to the playoffs. Maybe it happens. Maybe the Union are peaking at the right time. Like I said, they are 7 games unbeaten. Teams can't beat the Union. The Union are doing just enough to stay undefeated. And I think I was having this conversation with Joe Tanzi and Kyle Almney before the match, and they brought up a really good point that I wasn't thinking too much of, but maybe some of you guys are. And they were talking about how just look at the data over the years with teams that do well in Champions League, go deep in Champions League. They struggle to make a top spot for the playoffs. Sometimes they don't even make the playoffs. And the Union sit in 3rd place. They're doing better than the historical data shows how teams perform usually if they go deep in the Champions League. Here's a great example for you guys. Look at LAFC. They went all the way to the final. Sitting in 3rd place, 48 points. They had a breakout game last night, I know, against Minnesota. But before that, Real Salt Lake, they lose 1-0 at home. Tie the Union 0-0. St. Louis tied 0-0. Beat Galaxy 4-2. Lose to Portland 2-0. Lose into Miami 3-1. So it hasn't been the type of season that LAFC probably are hoping for. But how many people expected St. Louis to win the Western Conference? It's done. It's over with. St. Louis is your Western Conference champion. A team that everybody said is going to finish 13th or 14th in the West, myself included. And things are tight right now. In the West, Real Salt Lake have a game in hand over LAFC. If they win that, they jump to 49 points. Vancouver won 46 points, only 2 points behind LAFC. Houston Dynamo 145 points. LAFC could drop. And the data shows that teams that go far in the Champions League struggle the rest of the regular season. LAFC have been struggling here the last few games. And I think it's probably a credit to the expectations that the Union have set for themselves the last 5-6 years with how successful they are. How 54 points doesn't seem good enough. Having 15 wins on the season doesn't feel good enough. Having 5 draws in a row doesn't feel good enough. Maybe we're being a little too harsh on the Union. I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, there is something in 7 games unbeaten. It's truth. I mean, look at Cincinnati last night. They lost. Now, it doesn't matter because the Supporters' Shield champions tied Montreal 1-1 a few weeks ago. Tied the Union 2-2. Lost to Orlando City. The Union are in better form right now than Cincinnati. That's a fact. Just going at the points earned the last 5-6 games. It's a fact that the Union are in better form. So how confident are you guys with this Union team? Time will tell, I guess, Saturday. And I was surprised too. Shout out to all the fans that showed up Wednesday night with the Phillies in town against the Marlins, clinching, taking on the Braves now. Congrats to them. Told you guys 2 episodes ago, though, it's going to be the Orioles and Phillies in the World Series. Orioles are winning in 5, so don't sleep on the Orioles. Don't sleep on the Orioles. Nobody's picking them to win the World Series. That's the way we like it here in Baltimore. But you guys don't want to hear my trash Maryland sports takes. Continue talking about the Union. Nate Harriel, I thought, played terrific last night. Maybe not terrific. Played well. Well enough. We've said it multiple times here. Should have been a penalty called against him in the first half. Gets away with it. Gets beat by Lennon on the second goal. Atlanta scores. But other than that, I thought he was solid for filling in for the suspended Kai Wagner on the night. And I asked Jakob Glesnes, well, how do you think Nate Harriel performed as the left back on the night?
He did well. Nate has been showing the whole year that he is true professional, that he's up for the fight for the team. So if he's playing right back, last week he showed that he could play a center back as well in a 3, and today he's showing his quality as a left back. So yeah, Nate is a great player and he's a great person. And he's showing that he's a team player tonight.
Yeah, he is a team player. He's a great player. Is it crazy to say that Nate is the most athletic player on the team? He's proven you can play him anywhere in the back line. You don't get that versatility from a lot of players. Like Jacob said, he played as a center back in a back 3 against Columbus. Now has to play as a left back. He's a natural right back. And Nate Harriel's the type of player that you hope sticks around for years to come. Of course, all players are going to tell you that they want to play in Europe. But Nate Harriel's a really, really solid player. A player that you can always count on. You can always rely on. And the big mistake on him is his offensive ability. If he can get better offensively, then you have a really good fullback. He's good defensively. Yeah, every now and then, he'll have moments where he gets too beat. But for the most part, you know what you're going to get in Nate. A solid defensive player. A threat on every set piece. And the fact that he can play anywhere on the back line. There's nobody else on this team that can do that. Kai Wagner can play in a back three. Can Kai play as a right back? Probably not, because he's left-footed. But he will use his right foot, but I think it comes totally unnatural if you try to play him there on the right. Can you play Olivier Bizer on the left? I don't think you can. You're not going to play one of your center backs as a left back. Can Matt Real play as a right back? Yeah, I think so. I don't think he would be great at it. But to close out a game the last 10 minutes or so, yeah, why not? But majority of this game, Nate Harriel played as a left back, and for majority of the game, he played really, really well. Big performance from him, and I'm so glad that Jim Curtin didn't overthink his lineup this game. Because I was concerned, right? If you play Matt Real and you start Jack McGlynn, you get zero defensive cover whatsoever on that left side of the field. Where if you start Nate, yeah, obviously you're not getting the attack you want from that spot. But what it does do is it allows Jack McGlynn to go further forward. You have real good defensive coverage on the left. Doesn't mean that Jack McGlynn doesn't have to play defense at all. But it gives Jack the freedom to push up higher, get more involved into the play. And so, yeah, I think if you have Leon Flock healthy to play 60, 65 minutes in this game, then you probably start Leon Flock as the left side of 8. You start Matt Real, and we all know that Leon's going to give you that defensive coverage, which then allows Matt Real to get more involved in the attack, which he's good at. And so Jim Curtin did the right decision, I thought, with starting Nate Harriel, having that defensive coverage on the left. Again, we talked about how Atlanta looked to take advantage of that in the second half. Did get a goal from that side. But for the most part, Nate Harriel was really, really solid on the night. Let's go ahead and end the podcast with 3 stars on the night. We've already talked about 2 out of the 3 stars, in my opinion, tonight. So we'll start from number 3, a player I did not mention too much this episode. That is Jose Martinez. 1 chance created, 2 out of 3 successful dribbles, 7 passes into the final third, 1 interception, 10 ball recoveries, 9 out of 11 ground duels won. Not bad for a player that was supposed to only play 30 minutes this game. And I do think, this team's built on their defense. The Union, as Jim always says, is only going to go as far as their front 3 takes them. But probably the most important player is Jose Martinez. What he does defensively, protecting the back line, and his playmaking ability as a 6 with his long balls, line splitting passes from that position. That is so valuable. And then you add his ability to shoot from distance, putting more shots on target. He can give you the occasional goal. Teams have to respect that. And now teams aren't going to sit back. They're going to put players on Jose Martinez, which now opens up more space. Martinez has the passing ability. That's going to be key for the Union in the playoffs, I believe, is having Jose Martinez available, being that playmaker, continuing to protect that back line, but also getting things going offensively. Number 2 on the night, Andre Blake, 4 saves. We talked about that save on Muamba. huge save, turning point in this match, which then went on to give the Union the spark they needed to score 3 goals in 9 minutes. And what else needs to be said about Andre Blake? Follows up his strong performance against Columbus with a good performance against Atlanta United once again. Earns him a spot on the bench for Team of the Match Day for week 35 or whatever week we're in now. I don't know. And then number 1 of the night, Daniel Gazdag, 1 goal, 1 assist. Great night for Daniel Gazdag. Again, I mean, that first half, excellent between the front 3. And if the game ended 3-0, then probably Mikel and Julian are joining Daniel in my 3 stars on the night. Daniel Gazdag gets a spot in Team of the Match Day for his performance. And you hope that the front 3 can continue to find ways to build on what they did in the first half. And I know I'm repeating myself, but a lot of good things in the first half. Not a lot of great things in the second half. Focus on the positives. Clean up what you need to clean up. Find ways to continue to be aggressive, to take your moments, and teams are going to fear you. Teams are going to fear you. They are going to sit back, which is fine. Let them sit back. We see what Jose Martinez can do with that long shot. If the goalie spills the ball, your front 3, you hope that they pounce on that loose ball. Goal in the back of the net. So, again, I'm not ready to say the Union are back. Maybe that changes after Nashville. Play like you did in the first half. And I agree, the Union are 100% back. But if you guys aren't following the podcast still on social media, follow on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook at Free Kick Pod. Wherever you get your podcast, The Free Kick. Be sure to like, review, subscribe if you guys haven't yet, so you are always aware when the podcast is uploaded and ready to download. Check out the YouTube page, youtube.com/freekickpod. There's a reason why we only went over the goals for the YouTube video. That is because of Apple TV crapping the bed. Couldn't get the game until like the 30th minute mark. I guess the feed was out or something. So I didn't feel like going back and looking at all these different key moments in the first half other than the goals. And I was pretty annoyed that Apple wasn't working. But in the end, got it to work. Got what I needed to record it. You guys see it in the goal breakdown videos. And as always, thank you guys for checking out those videos. Be loud, be proud. Look forward to seeing some of you guys at the game this Saturday. Bundle up. It's supposed to be a little bit chilly, I think, right? Rain in the morning, I think they're calling for. Man, those are some of the best games, right? That cold, brisk air. You know it's playoff time. So I'm looking forward to this match against Nashville. Looking forward to hopefully seeing a Orlando City loss. Hoping the Union can move into second place. But gotta finish top 4. Gotta finish top 4. And anything can happen. But until then, my name is Todd. And this is the Free Kick Podcast.